So as a Catholic, the source and summit of our life is Eucharist. And the only way we receive Eucharist is because of the consecrated priest's hands in persona Christi. There's just no replacement for that. Or even the sacrament of penance, just the healing, the mercy that God shows to us through those. And they were only made available from a priest.
Without religious vocations, I'm not sure that we would have sacraments. And without sacraments, what do we have?
Without the Eucharist, the people of God will starve. And without priests, we won't have the Eucharist. And so we, as a people, must say, well, do I value this? When I come to Sunday Mass and I look up on the altar and I see my pastor, do I value what it is they did? Well, of course we do. They're there when our children are born. They're there when we're married. They're there when a relative dies, and they walk with us. They are, if you will, the hands and feet of Christ walking with us.
I grew up in Richmond. When I grew up there were 3 parishes and 5 priests. I could go to Mass anytime I wanted. In Indianapolis, all of a sudden there are fewer opportunities, and in Richmond, a lot fewer.
Here in the Archdiocese of Indianapolis, over the last 15 or 20 years, we've been pretty consistent in our number of seminarians that we've had. We're blessed with a good number of seminarians. We have a higher number of seminarians relative to our Catholic population than a lot of our neighboring dioceses. The challenge that we're facing is that we do not have enough seminarians currently in formation who would then be ordained priests to be able to take the place of the priests who are retiring. The numbers of retirements in the last 15, 20 years has significantly outpaced the number of ordinations.
We need now more than ever courageous men to come forward and say, yes, I will give this a try. Yes, I will go to the seminary, I will pray about this, and if I feel so called, Lord, I will take the courage that you give me, and I will do it.
There was a day when many parishes had multiple priests assigned to them, and where each of our high schools had a resident chaplain, and each of our college campuses had a resident chaplain. Currently, none of our high schools have resident chaplains, and very few college campuses have designated priest chaplains, and there are very few parishes with multiple priests assigned there. We know that we will need to call forward more and more new seminarians and priests to be able to serve the church.
We were in a Bible study, my husband and I. There were at least 10 other Catholic couples. There was one couple, they have 11 children. They were super open to vocations, but everyone else was they were horrified. They were shocked at the thought that one of their children would choose that as a life, almost like it was a curse or a penance. And it's a gift. I mean, it's a grace that only God places on their hearts.
The world would say of my life, of priest's life, the world, if we trusted only the media, would say, oh, that's an unhappy life, that's an unfulfilled life. I have been a priest 29 years this June. They have been the happiest years of my life. And as I've indicated before, it's because my parents, married 59 years to my mother's death, showed me that when you make a commitment and you are faithful, it doesn't mean you'll be perfect, but it does mean you're going to lay down your life toward that fidelity.
There's so many misconceptions and there's so much distraction that comes from our secular world that it's almost you have to push the whole concept of a religious vocation. Our role in the Serra Club is to try to get that message to enough people that it's on their mind all the time. We're competing with the mind space, so to speak, with the secular world. They're trying to get them to do other things. Yeah.
Every walk of life is a vocation. Some of them are consecrated and some of us are married, but we all have a vocation, and we are all responsible to pray for each other and to help each other discern on what God is really calling us to do.
Vocations is the work of the entire church. Vocations to holy sacramental marriages and vocations to the priesthood, particularly with vocations to the priesthood because of the sacramental life of the church that the priest leads in so many ways. We speak of the priest in persona Christi, both in reconciliation and at the altar, at the Eucharist. And it's the work of the church, because if we don't have priests, we won't have the Eucharist. And the Eucharist is our spiritual food.
The purpose and the mission of the Serra Club is to affirm our existing vocations. It's to pray for vocations and those that are already in vocations, and to promote vocations to religious life and priesthood. So to me, affirm, pray, promote are three buzzwords that summarize the mission of the Serra Club.
When I became vocation director, before my current role as director of seminarians, started to develop a really strong relationship with the Serra Club as the lay arm of the church for vocations. And to be able to see and to witness the passion that the Serra Club members have for the church, first of all, and for their own faith, that's then expressed in working together with the clergy and the religious of the church to be able to build up vocations, is really an inspiring opportunity for us as priests to be able to work together with the lay faithful in this common work of building vocations.
Serra Club is an organization that I can proudly say as rector has our back. It has our back in recruitment of men for the priesthood. It has our back in adult education of its membership toward understanding the importance of vocation. It has our back in community events that it sponsors and takes place right here at the seminary. Its membership drive, a cookout every spring for the seminarians. And so Serra, really, I see it as a not just a club. I know it's called the Serra Club, but I really see it as a lifestyle of lay people who are concerned for vocations and a giving of themselves to that. Beyond the things I've mentioned, many of the members of the Serra Club are on our board here at the seminary. And so they, of course, are being educated to the work that we do, but they're also educating us by their example of support for vocations. I've never had a Serra Club member refuse to serve on our seminary board. And one of the members right now is in his third term of doing it. So, returning to where I began, Serra Club has our back.
Without the laity supporting priest religious seminarians in any capacity, I don't think seminarians would make it. Their support just shows that there is a church waiting for us. Like, there's a church who desires to have us out in their parishes and out serving them. Like, without them, it'd be so much harder to be a seminarian in today's world.
The Serra Club ideally should have a presence in every parish. They're the ones who are always coming to me as pastor or to other members of the parish staff or leadership and saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about doing something for Vocations Awareness Week? Here are some resources. Do we have anyone who might be able to go to Bishop Route days? So they can be that person in the parish who is always thinking vocations. And in our busy life as pastors and as other parish leaders, something might slip by us, but a Serra Club member can be there to remind us this is happening, and here are some ways that we can help to support vocations in our parish community.
When we have the speakers, most of them are consecrated life, and when you ask them how they got their vocation, it was one person asking them, hey, have you thought about becoming a priest? Have you ever considered a vocation to be a sister, a nun? That is us. We are that voice. You see someone, ask them, tell them what a great job they did serving at Mass or singing at Mass or reading at Mass, or you see their prayerful heart as they're, kneeling down in group prayer. But be that person, be that motivation.
Step forward and say to a young man who you see week in, week out at Mass serving, have you ever thought about this? Even if you strike out and the young man says, well, no, I'm going to major in business down at the IU School of Business or whatever, at least you've put that out there. And it may be that the young man simply says, well, that's never been proposed to me.
When I was a senior in high school, I pretty much had my whole life planned out of what I was going to do. I was going to be a geologist, get married and have a family, until I had a teacher who was on a retreat that I was on ask if I had ever considered being a priest. And it was that question coming from a teacher who I knew and trusted that made me stop and realize that I had never brought God into the conversation about what my life was going to look like. And it made me shift my way of thinking from what I want to do to what God wants me to do. And that was really the beginning of my active discernment process.
That relationship of knowing the Serra Club began long before I was affiliated with the Archdiocese. My sophomore high school religion teacher made known the essay contest in 1983, and I wrote directly that I felt God was calling me to be a priest, and that essay made it all the way to the top, and I was honored by the Serra Club. I still have the plaque on my apartment wall here at the seminary that honored me for that essay, and that also kind of accelerated my vocation. So the Serra Club has been very instrumental in my vocation and care for me as a priest.
We were invited by one of the couples to come to a Serra Club dinner meeting, and I thought, oh, not another meeting. That's just what I need. I mean, you have Bible study on Monday, Serra Club on Tuesday, food pantry on Wednesday. And we came to the meeting, and the speaker was dynamic, was fantastic. And I realized that it would not only further a dream of mine to help promote vocations, but it would also help me grow as an individual, as a Catholic, as a Christian, somebody who has a desire to pass forward the graces that God has given to me. You can become as involved or as uninvolved as you choose. But the ministry, I think, hopefully placed on everyone's heart is prayer.
We all promise as members of Serra Club to pray for vocations on a designated day of the month. We also have seminarians and people who are considering religious formation for whom we promise to pray on a regular basis. At Serra, we are invited to attend monthly meetings where we enjoy fellowship, where we pray together, where we hear speakers to talk about how we can participate in the good work of vocations.
Even those that discern out, you've prayed for them, but God's will be done. When you go to Mass, you look at that priest and you realize he's the gift of somebody else's prayer, and why shouldn't that prayer be mine for either him or the next priest that's coming in?
The prayers of the faithful who pray for us here are felt here. You're being prayed for.
I have been very blessed to have so many people reaching out to me that they're praying for me from the Serra Club and the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. The work that they're putting in schools and in churches, that I'm receiving letters every day telling me that I'm being prayed for, and that is one of the most important things that a layperson can do, I think, is to pray for those who are in seminary and for those who are discerning or those who have a call but maybe be running from it.
Such an important piece of everything is calling discerners to prayer. At the same time, we recognize that it is so important for the entire church to be praying for vocations. Jesus, in the gospel, he says, "The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. Pray to the master of the harvest that he will send out laborers to the harvest." And we know that every prayer counts. Another piece of what we do is to ask the entire people of God, would you please pray for vocations?
If there weren't opportunities like Brute Days, Storm the Castle Nights, discernment dinners, I don't know if I'd really even consider the priesthood. But because those events and those opportunities that are for young men and for young women to discern priesthood life or religious life, it gives them just a taste of what could be.
I remember Serra Club would come to the grade schools at that time. This was in the 1950s. A member of Serra Club would come and speak to us, but they would have displays set up of archdiocesan priests and the Sisters of Providence and Benedictines, the monks at St. Mindred or Franciscans, And there would be representatives from each of these groups.
I considered the priesthood, but I didn't really connect the possibility with reality. Then I met a seminarian and I realized, oh, that's a thing. That's when I started realizing there's a process to it. There's a place I can go and actually say, hey, I want to do it.
Well, I remember even before I was a priest, the Serra Club was so important to me. And I always knew that there was this group of people who supported what I was doing. And that made a big difference to me and to all of us.
I think the Serra Club has helped me specifically actually at these Brute Days events because they provide a meal.
Providing meals.
The food that you've brought. And give us pizza, a lot of cookies.
I always find it beautiful how much the Serra Club enjoys watching young men eat. And it's so true, and it's awesome that they're so generous in feeding our discerners and feeding our seminarians, and but more importantly, just walking with them is the more important nourishment that I think that they provide.
Sophomore year of high school, I attended Simon Brute Days, where the Serra Club helped provide a barbecue meal, and that kind of pulled me closer to my faith and to my vocation and to my calling to the priesthood.
There's something about a meal.
There is something about a meal. Well, if you look in the Old Testament, you see one of the most important things going on there is the Passover meal. In the New Testament, of course, the Last Supper, and then Jesus on the cross giving his very body and blood for our nourishment. So I think we do know there is something about a meal that is so important. People coming together, creating new relationships, talking, being nourished, both in body and in soul. And the Serra Club enables so many of those important, life-changing meals. And that I see as one of the most wonderful gifts they offer.
If you look at the history of the church in the United States, the church in this country was built by missionaries. Spanish missionaries, French missionaries, Portuguese missionaries. The Spanish especially had a great influence on the building of the church in this country, and one of those early missionaries was St. Junipero Serra, who founded the Mission Churches of California. His purpose really was evangelization, helping to spread the good news of Jesus Christ. There's a story that St. Junipero Serra said that the one item that he most needed for his mission churches was a monstrance. He would have significant Eucharistic processions in each of the villages that were built up surrounding his mission churches. And he needed a monstrance to be able to do that, to be able to take Jesus out to the people. I think that's what we're called to as a church, is to come to know Jesus Christ, but then take him out to people who do not know him. And we all do this in different ways, priests, religious, laity. But that mission of being able to build up the church to then take Jesus out into the world, I think is what it was central to St. Junipero Serra.
Our Catholic Church has an incredibly rich history and a beautiful present. It also has an important future. And I think the Serra Club is vital to the future of the entire church.
The Pope, within the last 5 to 10 years, had stated that the Serra Club is an integral part of the Catholic Church, supporting and encouraging religious vocations. And I think the Archdiocese of Indianapolis, as well as other archdioceses, really embraced the Serra Club and tried to work together to accomplish the same thing.
The Serra Club supports what really undergirds the church, which is vocation, which is calling. And so I would just encourage anybody thinking about, praying about, considering joining the Serra Club to do it.
If it's something that is going to make you a better person, which I believe the Serra Club will, if it's something that's going to provide you with opportunities to serve others, which is such a basic Christian goal, if you have the means and the capabilities, it's something that really has great benefits both here on earth, but definitely in heaven as well.
We're not exclusive. We're open to anybody and everybody that works to support the ongoing work of the church, especially through the promotion of vocations to full-time ministry in the church.
If there's a crisis now, it's only temporary. It's just waiting for kind of that spark that I think really is burning right now in the Archdiocese.
The future of our church depends upon not just people, but you. And so it would be great to have you.